Hey, this is Dan, and today I'm doing a follow-up to a video that I put out a short while ago talking about recording more than one guitar amplifier at the same time. I hope you go and watch that one to put this one into some more context because I don't want to repeat everything. So in that video I talked about using two completely different amplifiers and then combining them to get one guitar tone. And I mentioned in that video that the other thing that you can do, you can use more than one microphone. So this video is going to be about multi-miking, actually using two microphones on an amplifier. So there's different mindsets you can have regarding multiple microphones on an amp. But in this case, I'm talking about using two microphones and just combining them to get a good mono guitar tone, like just one solid tone. You can use any two microphones to do this, but the way I like to think about it is trying to go for, again, two very different sounds. So what I'll generally do is use something like the SM57 right up against the cabinet, whatever you're using. The mic I like to use as my second mic is a ribbon microphone. And I know a lot of people get fairly intimidated by ribbon mics, and I avoided using them for years because they have somewhat of a mystique to them in that they are very fragile and expensive at the same time. So when I record with a ribbon mic, I do it in a traditional style, I think, and that is to back it away from the source. And there's a couple reasons why that is done. And number one, traditionally ribbon microphones have been very fragile, and if you get too close to something, you never want to put a ribbon mic up against a kick drum, for example, because you can damage the ribbon. Even singing into a ribbon mic, you don't want to have it too close to your voice because, at least in the older ones, you could damage the ribbon. Now, I think the technology has made a lot of strides, and the newer ribbon mics, I think the ribbons are made out of a more durable material. Maybe that's just some of them. I'm not an expert on ribbon mics, but I keep it with the traditional style of backing away from my source. So I might back away about 18 inches from a guitar cabinet. Now, the second reason why you'd want to back away a little bit is because ribbon microphones have a figure 8 pickup pattern. And what that means is that, you have null points at the sides, and you're going to pick up from the front and back, and it sort of looks like a figure 8. In my opinion, you get a more pleasing sound when you back away from an amp especially. What we're going to do is take a look at a session, just a quick example that I did to show you how I handle two mics, because almost always, especially in a home studio setting, you're going to get some phasing problems when you use two mics at the same time. Now, you can Google the 3-to-1 rule in recording with two microphones on one source, and that deals with placing your microphones, the second one being 3 times the distance as the first one from the source. But in a home setting, we're not, at least for me, I'm in one room most of the time, and I don't have a separate room, and I'm not in a soundproofed area where I can just listen to the mics and have somebody else play it and an assistant or somebody moving mics around. So the way I deal with it, I will align the tracks. So let's jump into the DAW, and I'll show you an example of exactly how I handle it. Plus I have a little creative tip there for how to use the phase to your advantage. This is just a riff that I came up with. I recorded it, and then I realized that it sounded like it was right out of the 80s. So this is a little 80s throwback day. I'm just playing this over a drum loop, and I laid down a quick scratch bass, and there's no effects or anything on this, so it's really not mixed. We're just doing this to hear the guitars. So here we go. Both mics on, and we've got a left and right performance double tracked. Here we go. let's listen to the SM57 on the left and the right. We'll just solo them. Hear what this sounds like. Sounds pretty much like a 57. And now let's listen to the ribbon mic. Again, it's about 18 inches away from the speaker. Dead on. To me, that just sounds a lot smoother. When we add both of these mics together, there's a bit of a problem, and it's with phase. So let's listen to that. I'll start with the ribbon mic and then add in the 57. And you can hear it. We gained a little bit of level there because we're adding in another mic, but you can clearly hear some phase problems. So there's a couple ways that we can solve this problem. We can either slide a track, manually align them, or something that I prefer to do is I insert this time adjuster plugin. And really all that is a delay plugin, but it's a very detailed plugin and it allows you to delay things in samples. So I'll bring this plugin on my track that I want to delay. So remember, the 57 was up close. That received the sound first. The ribbon got it second because it was back a little further. So we want to delay the 57 to meet the ribbon mic. And what I'm going to do is go to the beginning of the performance. But you could really do it anywhere, but it seems less confusing when you go to the beginning. Pro Tools has this magnifier glass option here for your cursor, and you can select and zoom in. And we can manually zoom in, and you can also kind of zoom in this way to exaggerate it. I don't want to get crazy, but so what we want to do is look at the obvious start of this waveform, and what I want to do is measure the distance from this to the starting point on the ribbon mic and really just close that gap of distance. And what we're going to need to do is put in the edit window, I'm going to click samples here to put my transport in sample mode. And we can zoom in a little bit more to get it right where it crosses 0 up top and here. And I come to 56 samples. So that's what we're going to plug in to this plugin, which I already did, and I did it here on the right track and also on the left one. Let's zoom out again. We're back in bars and beats. Let's listen again. I'll just start with all the mics on, and then I will unbypass the time adjuster plugin so that it will align the tracks, and just hear how much different that sounds. Let's go. So just much fuller. You can hear both mics in there. Let's listen to it with the drums. Okay, so you get the point. But you can hear the difference with having both mics on at the same time. I'll do it again, and let's mute the ribbon mics and start it, and I'll bring them in. It really thickens it up, and I think the two mics complement each other really well. As you get into the mix, something I do a lot, let's say I get to the solo section of this song. Normally you might duck or bring down rhythm guitars during a guitar solo. Something that I could do here would be I might mute the SM57 track during the solo, because that'll clear out some of that frequency space for the lead guitar. You could create another sound texture by bringing up one mic versus the other for a bridge. There's all kinds of things that you could do now that you have both of those mics. You might decide you don't like them together and just mute one of them, but you have that option. I think once you start experimenting with this, you're going to find out what you like and what works, and you'll be able to go to that, and you'll be able to get that sound in your head, and you'll know how to get it a little bit easier. And that's all I'm really encouraging you to do, is just try this stuff. Hopefully it helps out. Now, another thing I wanted to show you, one of the reasons why I like using this time adjuster plugin and not sliding the tracks is because I like to preserve how I recorded them in the first place. And the reason for that is, one of the creative options that I like to have is automating plugins. And in this case, you can automate this time adjuster plugin. You'll notice when I was playing it, I was bypassing and unbypassing. You can automate that and actually reintroduce the phase that was a problem, but kind of use it almost like a phase pedal. If you're not familiar with how to automate a plugin, at least in Pro Tools, you can, you see this double squares on the plugin. You click that, and that's your plugin automation enable. And on your left side, it has all available parameters of a plugin that can be automated, and you just select them and add them. So once they're over here, so for example, I can automate now my delay, the amount of delay, like the number of samples, and the master bypass. So let's say I want to automate my master bypass. And you'll notice as well that it's now green. It's usually not green, but that's green, and my delay is green, showing me that those are able to be automated. So let's go to the view section here, and now you'll see it under time adjuster. And let's look at the master bypass. And we're going to automate both the left and right guitars because I have them grouped. So my automation will also be grouped. And let's just go to this section here. And I don't know really what this is going to do, but let's bypass the plugin. In other words, let's reintroduce our phase issue for this little section here. Not that section, it's too soon. And turn it off here. Okay, now let's listen to it. You may not like that, but that is an option. And of course, when you introduce phase, sometimes you lose some level. So I would probably adjust my volume automation to make sure that my level was equal. Another thing that you could do is mess around with what it sounds like to push the tracks even further out of phase. And you can do some extreme things and just mess around with that, and you can automate it. The only thing I wouldn't do is have automation that constantly changes this number of samples, because it'll introduce some artifacts. At least this plugin does that. And usually anytime you mess with delay time, you're going to introduce some nasty artifacts. But all right, so hopefully that little tip adds something to your mixing arsenal. Hopefully the dual miking example helped clarify some things. Give it a shot, but I would always recommend placing each mic to get the best sound that you can, because that's something that you can only EQ so much. So just really do your best to try to solve a lot of the tone problems at the front end. So I'd encourage you to try this stuff, and hopefully it helps, and I thank you again for watching. Take care.